to the school committee meetings. I will call the meeting of August 31st, 2011 to order, and I believe everybody is present, Linda. Thank you. We have an approval of items by consensus first. Mrs. Benton.
Good evening, everyone. I'm thrilled to be back. We have 3 items on the consent agenda: approval of the minutes of the regular session of June 22nd, approval of the executive session minutes of June 22nd, not for release, approval of field trips, field trip to England for the senior high school in April vacation. It's hopefully trying to recruit 12 seniors. If we don't get all seniors, we will go invite juniors. And then the transmitting of treasury warrants, which I have split up so that you can take them separately.
And we're going to also split up the approval of minutes because 2 of the members were absent during sessions. Second, both regular and executive session. I'll take that as a separate motion. Would someone like to move those minutes? Thank you, Mr. Vail. Do we have a second? Mr. Hayes. All those in favor? Yes, and with 2 abstentions, Mr. Marchese and Mrs. Carroll. Okay. And then we can do the approval of the field trips and the transmission of the treasury warrant above the payroll. We'll do the payroll separately also. So rather than read them all out, I'll take a motion to approve the high school field trip and transmit treasury warrant as listed.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second, Mrs. Carroll. Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, Linda? And then the last one is the approval of the payroll warrants of June, July, and August. Do we have, okay, Dr. Quick.
Motion to approve payroll warrants of June, July, and August.
And second, Mr. Marchese. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, and 1 abstention, Mrs. Carroll. Thank you very much. Okay, yes, Mr. Vail.
Can I just ask a question? Not that I'm saying I would recommend this, but what on earth would happen if we failed to approve a payment for payroll that was already paid back in June?
What would happen if we double approved it, or
No, if we didn't approve
it
it.
all?
Good question. We'll find out. We'll get you an answer.
We'll hope we didn't make a mistake.
Mechanically, we should be approving to expend money before it goes out.
We'll get you an answer.
Right.
Unless you want us to just give you a blanket approval to expend money in the future, I'm happy doing that.
Yeah.
For
Oh, I see
payroll.
what he's saying. You do that.
We'll
Yeah.
get an answer for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for bringing that up, and we'll check into that for the next time. All right. Our next item of business is the superintendent's report. Mrs. Benton.
I have 3 items on this section of the agenda, but first, I'd just like to ask for a moment of silence in memory of Doug Chernowitz, who was a middle school teacher for 10 years in the Wilmington Public Schools, who suddenly passed away this summer. In my opening remarks to the staff this year, I was telling them that I had received a letter from his wife thanking the Wilmington community for the outpouring of love and support from the students and staff. And she proceeded to say how much Doug loved Wilmington and thought of this as his family. And I said to the staff, I just hope that he realized how many lives he touched, as witnessed by 40 pages, 1,149 as of this morning, entries into a Facebook of memories that our students have had of Doug Chernowitz. And in telling the staff that, I also hope that they understand how very much every minute in the classroom makes a difference in some child's life. So I'd like to ask for a moment of silence in Doug's memory.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kane. The middle school is putting together a committee of students and staff who are going to come up with some suggestions on how we can honor Doug, and his family would very much like to be involved, so we will keep you abreast of what we're going to do.
Thank you.
The first report is the personnel report, and I'm pleased to say we filled all positions but one. We did end up on Friday filling the middle school social studies position, and I want to again publicly thank Rick Barry, who volunteered to move to Doug Chernowitz's classroom, and so it would, because we felt it would be really hard on a new teacher coming into that room, and so then we filled his position, and we were able to fill it on Friday. Then all the new teachers are invited to the next school committee meeting, so you'll be able to meet everyone. We found a dynamic young teacher that I think will add to the team at the middle school. 27 positions, busy summer. Unfortunately, could not find a .5 strings teacher. We thought we had someone, but then they were enticed by a full-time position. So what we've decided to do is some outreach to the music schools, because there's lots of students these days matriculate in December. So we're hoping to try and recruit early and bring someone on board in the middle of the year.
It's a great idea.
So I look forward to introducing you to all this new staff on the 14th. And we also have, here, one of our newest staff is our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Kate Burnham, who comes to us from Tingsboro. She started on July 1st and has had a very busy summer and has blended in beautifully. One of the principals said to me this morning, I can't get over how she's just jumped in and joined the group, and we're thrilled to have her.
Thank you.
This has been a very busy summer and a very busy last couple of weeks. I first want to again acknowledge the town manager, the Department of Public Works, and the Superintendent of Public Buildings for all their assistance this summer getting the schools ready. If you haven't been by Shawshene, please drive by because it looks like a brand-new school. The windows are at 85% completion. The front door and entrance is going up on Friday, starting tomorrow night into Friday, and then we have some little detail work left, but not only does it look beautiful from the outside, wait till you go inside and see how bright the classrooms are. It's amazing. Mr. Apoloni reported that at their open house on Monday night, everyone was just raving about the windows and what a difference it's made to the schools. So thank you also to the custodians at Shawshene, because they really had a scramble in getting the building up for and ready for the students. So we thank the Massachusetts Green Repair Program, who is subsidizing the windows, paying for half. That's always good news. And actually, I just learned that they have $150 million that they haven't spent on a stimulus grant, and we're hearing rumors that they're going to do another batch of applications. So I've already spoken to the town manager about wanting to do as much as we can, applying for as much as we can, because frankly, it's half price. And how can you turn that down? So we'll be keeping you informed as we move along, but it's a...
And I'd just like to add that I know she's not going to tell you, but if it wasn't for Mrs. Benton, we would not have had that savings. She found out about this, she went forward with this, and we owe her a great debt for that. She did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. A partial roof was replaced at the Wildwood as well, and the CARES offices have moved to the north. And they are in the back entrance downstairs. I'm excited. I think that the director should be in a school where the program is, and the summer program is at the north, so I think it made a lot of sense to have CARES in a school building. It's allowing the central office to free up a little bit more space to try and make the entranceway a little bit more professional by moving the lunchroom upstairs and making a few changes. But that's going to take a couple of months because we have received a couple of offers of some free furniture that we're going to wait and check out before redesigning. So we're happy about that. All of the principals and secretaries worked hard during the summer to get everything ready. We had our Leadership Institute on August 17th. Attorney Andrew Waugh came and did a morning presentation, which really was fascinating as always, and he actually spent most of the time talking about the new teacher evaluation system and the legal ramifications, and said that he was happy to hear that we were not going to be one of the first adopters, because maybe we can learn from some of the mistakes or what other districts are doing. But it's going to open up a lot of questions and concerns about how moving forward. And Lieutenant Scott Sensabaugh came to talk about some new ideas around evacuation of buildings when there is an intruder. And I have to say, I had never thought of this, and we haven't made a decision yet, but the new train of thought on this is, as you know now, we sort of go into a lockdown mode. But in all their research that they've done on the Columbine and the Virginia Tech incidents is that people in the building were better off that made a run for it right away than those that were locked down in a room. And they actually document, if you recall, there was a professor at Virginia Tech who had survived the Holocaust and was murdered. Mm-hmm. He actually protected his students by barricading the door and standing at the door and telling the students all to jump out the window. And the room across where all the students were in had the most students killed. So we're going to be talking about this year, and we'll bring back to you any changes that we have. And we had this system where we used to put cards outside the door, and we've eliminated that because that didn't make sense.
Come and get us.
I do want to acknowledge the police and fire department. As always, they've been here to support us. They were at our safety meeting last week and opening up the school, and we are really thrilled that we have such a strong partnership. We have a new resource officer at the high school. Brian Gillis is going to be on the high school staff this year. Unfortunately, Brian Herman had to change hours because of some daycare issues, so Brian Gillis will be starting with us. And we have Chip Bruce at the middle school and Officer Julie at the 2 intermediate schools. Opening day was fabulous. It was, the perfect weather. Everybody felt like it was fall, so everybody felt like coming back to school. And it was, I was thrilled. Usually the buses are much later on opening day, and they really went extremely smoothly. We do know we have a problem with middle school bus 1, and we are making corrections to that, and also watching the count on that. So we ask the community to have a little patience. It's going to take us a few weeks to get everything straightened out. Also, the true test of the buses, it does not happen until next week when we have the kindergarten buses running. And again, I like to try and remind the community that, and I talked to a couple of groups of kindergarten parents this morning, and Kate took the other 2 groups, is that we all love taking pictures of our kindergartners on the bus on the first day of school, getting on and getting off, and that unfortunately slows down the process for the rest of the town. So the buses really do take longer next Tuesday, but we will monitor all the buses. And again, kudos to Sharon Dennett and Susan Hardeman and Paul Ruggiero on the bus routes. It was very, very bizarre on Tuesday, and actually we probably spoke too soon, but there was not one phone call at the Roman House about buses, and I kept saying to Paul, something's wrong here, something's wrong here. But we do know we have some issues, and we will work to get them addressed. Kate hosted a new teacher orientation on August 25th and did an outstanding job. We had a fun day, including with the annual bus tour of Wilmington for the new staff, which is always enjoyable, and I think the staff really enjoyed it, and will be overseeing the mentor program for the year. Lastly, I have to say, I can't believe this is my
The chairman is not reading this, thank you.
I don't mind doing it if you
Do you
don't,
mind?
unless Mr. Vail would like to?
I'm happy to read it.
Okay,
Doesn't
thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Hill, thank you.
All right, so the new policy is the appropriate use of personal electronic devices. During the school day, students may have in their possession a silenced personal electronic device such as, but not necessarily limited to, a cellular, mobile telephone, smartphone, audiovisual player recorder, or laptop, tablet, handheld, pen-based computer. The use of the communication features of such devices during instructional time is prohibited unless the classroom teacher or other school official has provided authorization for their use. Notwithstanding the foregoing, students may use the communication features of such devices during their designated lunch period within the cafeteria and the cafeteria lobby only, provided, however, that the principal or his designee shall have the right to prohibit or otherwise regulate the use of such devices within the cafeteria and cafeteria lobby. Students who utilize such personal electronic devices in the halls, in classes without permission, or in a manner that is disruptive will have their device taken and held at the assistant principal's office to be picked up by a parent or lawful guardian. Use of a personal electronic device's audio or visual recording features is not permitted without prior approval of an administrator or teacher. Failure to comply with the requirements of this policy will result in disciplinary action and may result in suspension.
Thank you, Mr. Vail. As part of the school committee's direction at the meeting last June, you asked me to complete a survey of parents. So we sent out a survey this summer. We had 302 responses, and this is out of 200, approximately 2,900 families, so it's a 12% response, which is statistically acceptable. 83% of the people who responded were in favor of this draft policy, 17% were not. I also took the opportunity to ask about future technology and asked if parents would be willing to provide their child with a laptop or tablet for school use. And 67% of the parents said yes. Parents/guardians said yes. 32% said no. And the third question was, what was your vision for a 21st century high school? I just want to thank all the people who responded, because if you go through the pages of comments, I think they're very thoughtful and very helpful. I think it's interesting. I have to say I was pleasantly surprised with the response about the supplying the laptop. As you know, Burlington is sort of setting the course in this part of the state around technology when they gave out iPads to all of the high school students last week. Bedford is doing the freshman class, and one other community, North Andover, I think, is doing 5 classrooms trying it out. And it was interesting that I heard from a couple of parents who said, well, when's Wilmington going to do this? We're not ready to do it. We don't have the infrastructure right now. I mean, we wouldn't do anything to the high school until we have a new high school. It wouldn't make sense to move that quickly. What I would like to do, though, is you will be hearing from our OIT director during the year, and I've asked him to look at the cost of making the middle school wireless, so that we can provide more access to technology in the middle school. So that will be coming forward at some point during the year. But I think that the comments are very thoughtful, made by the community. Also, we had asked the high school council to vote on it, and Mrs. Bonish is on that council. Maybe she could share with us the results.
On the
Trying to pass it, yes.
It was voted on, it was discussed. Probably about the same percentage was not for it, but the majority was.
Just want to remind the committee that we had said that if this is approved and there's no vote tonight, as you know, we have to do it at least 2 readings. This would be a 6-month trial if it didn't work.
The one that, I believe this is different from the one we voted on, because the one we voted on, I think, had them using it in the hallways.
Right.
And I know you guys took that out.
Took it out.
Right.
Because we decided to go with the Burlington
Right.
model.
So, that's the only difference.
Be happy to answer questions or comments.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Dr. Quick?
For the next meeting, let's say this passes, is there a way that we can try to, my big concern is actually during the lunch time. I mean, we're so concerned about kids getting proper, we're trying to put recess before lunches. So my question is there any way we could possibly, if this is something that does pass and we try to pilot this, is there any way we can, take a look to see what's, I want to see that kids are eating their lunches and not spending all their time texting. That's one of my big concerns about having it in the lunchroom. So I'm just trying to see if there's a way that we can
Sure.
monitor that and have like a before and after type of progress.
Mrs. Carroll, you want to say?
I was going to say the same thing as her. I'd rather see them communicating instead of on their phone texting to one another.
Dr. Quick, we
Oh,
still.
sorry. And then one other thing was just, I've had some people mention, and I think it's a viable question, is some parents who work, for example, they're asking how, the one thing that they've mentioned, and I think I saw that in the survey, I'm not sure, how they can pick up, if they're responsible for picking up a phone, but they work, how they pick up a phone at the end of the day if they're working.
Mrs. Bonish?
Probably wouldn't. And that would be,
So
so
then
they
what
wouldn't do it
happens?
again, in other words. They wouldn't
Well, I
get their
guess my
phone.
question is procedurally what happens? The kid just gets it the next day at school?
I mean,
To get it when the parent finally is able to get there.
Yeah,
It adds to the
Is that how-
parental responsibility. Maybe their child won't do it again.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, the high school is open at 6:30 in the morning, so.
on their way to work.
Oh, it is,
Yeah, I
okay.
mean, and principals are usually here late, so
Yeah.
it's open enough for
Okay.
people to get here.
we had also talked about doing it as a trial basis. Is that still something, is that going to be written in that it's a trial basis, or is it just assumed?
No, I prefaced it by saying we were going to try it out and see how it
Okay.
went, yes.
And also, the communication features of that, does that mean no cameras? Or does that mean you can, it just says they can use the communication features? Does that include?
There's a specific line that says you cannot use the camera,
Where does it say that?
the audio or visual recording features. I mean, I guess we could separate out camera, but the real concern that I had when I wrote this was the recording of people without their authorization or approval. And I figured that, frankly, that the school stands in loco parentis, and that the only people that could give permission to a minor to record other minors would be the administration. And so that's why that's all in there.
What about the camera? I mean,
Yeah, to take photographs. I think it's in there. I mean, I don't think anyone should be taking pictures.
Yeah.
But we should,
We can-
we could look at that.
make it specific.
Yeah, we could look at that. I mean, I like the comments, just as I read through them. I think they give us some food for thought as to how we'd like to go. Whether, and I'm swayed by the fact that the school is open early and open late, but, I did see some comments that said, why don't you let the students pick it up at the end of the day, but if, 3 strikes and you're out or something after that, then the parent has to come get the phone. It's more of an administrative headache and keeping track of things, so there's some balancing there. Whether something is silenced or all the way off, we could look at that too, because even when it's silenced, you can still receive texts and you can flick it on and see if you got anything. Hopefully there's enough authority in here so that the principal or his designee shall have the right to prohibit or otherwise regulate the use of such devices. I think it can be changed and regulated as experience is gained with implementing this.
Thank you. Dr. Quick?
Just one other comment to just add on to what Quincy was saying. I do think that in such a policy, that it should be as specific as possible. Just because, it's something that obviously, we've heard that the principals and vice principals have been dealing with for a while, so they're going to try, kids will try to find the loopholes. So I think we should try to make it as specific as we can.
Anyone else have any comments before I make my comments? Okay. This is I have not felt this strongly about a policy issue since I've been on this committee. And I feel very strongly about this one, that we are making a major mistake here. I don't know why it's educationally sound to allow these kids to be using their cell phones. I take my granddaughter out to lunch, and I see a mother with her daughter, and that mother was texting the entire time. While my granddaughter and I were having this wonderful little conversation with the two of us, and she even noted on the way out, what's that lady doing? Why isn't she talking to her daughter? She spent the entire 20 minutes doing that. I don't understand. I think this started out for me, and it's evolved, I think thanks to you, Quincy, adding to the policy. But it was about cell phone use at lunch and cell phone use in the hallways. And fortunately, we came to the conclusion that cell phone use in the hallways that's absurd in the 2-minute passing time. But now it's at lunch. If we're going to do it at lunch, could we perhaps, I don't think we've thought about this enough, is what I guess my number one point is. We have a media center. If kids want to do work on their cell phones or whatever it is, with all of these other elements, we're going to allow them to use cellular, mobile, telephone, smartphone, audiovisual player, and recorder. What are they doing with those at lunch when they're supposed to be eating lunch? I don't understand this at all. I just can't get my head around this. Maybe we could have the media center open, and kids who want to do that come to the media center, and they're able to use this equipment at the media center. Also, I would like to see this reviewed by our lawyer, just to make sure, because I think that we're opening up ideas that kids, what happens when they lose them, they break them, they're stolen? I think we're opening up, who's responsible for all these items that they're going to be bringing to school? And the more I look at this, what is the educational value of this policy? I don't see it. Having said that, I love the idea when I found out that Burlington actually is giving them the equipment. Their teachers are obviously they obviously know what to do with that equipment and how to use it, and they're going to be using it in their classrooms. I have no objection to that. If that was this policy, I would be leading the parade, to have the teachers giving them something. What are they giving them that they need to call on the cell phone during? Who are they calling? Who are they going to be talking to? I can't get my head around this, and I can't understand it. And I need someone to tell me what is the educational value of this policy. Because you're not talking about in the classroom, you're talking about in the cafeteria. How long is lunch? 20 minutes, 25 minutes? Who do they need to be calling? And if they're doing something for a report or a project, that means that the teacher knows about it, and the teacher's leading their project. And that teacher should be able to let them use it in the classroom. So I have no objection to that at all, to being able to use these things. I don't think we've thought about this enough. I think that there's too many, the cons outweigh the pros, and I've been feeling I had a nightmare the other night. I'm sorry to tell you. I was so upset about this. And I woke myself up, and I'm in the cafeteria, and I'm going nuts on these kids who are on their cell phones not talking to each other during lunch. So I'm just putting that forward. I'm probably going to lose this battle. It's not because I'm the oldest one here, and it's not because I don't understand technology. It's because I just do not see the educational value to this policy. Thank you. I'll do Mrs. Benton first.
I just wanted to tell you that this has been reviewed and approved by legal counsel.
Great, thank you very much.
And I just want to distinguish, there's two different parts to this policy. One has to do with giving the students the freedom to legally use their phones at lunch. Actually, my guess is the number of parents that will be called to come pick up phones will go down because principals right now are spending half their lunchtime collecting phones from kids who are trying to make a call at lunchtime. If I recall the group of students that came before the committee, and I think were very articulate, they were asking for you to consider a compromise so that they would have a time during the day that they could use their phone legally. The other piece to this policy, there are teachers that are interested in using phones in the classroom, if all students have a phone, as part of, educationally, in order to, for example, instead of the clickers that we have a couple of sets of, they can use their phones so that every student responds to a question. So that
On their telephone?
Yeah. Can do that.
Through Twitter or something.
They can use it to look up, go on the internet and look up a question that the teacher has right then and there. These are just a couple of examples of what we're seeing the technology's evolving into. So there's really two parts to the policy. And I know that sometimes it's hard for us to
Be careful how
to
you
think
put
about
this.
sort of our own no, I'm one of that. I'm in your generation, personal beliefs versus, and I guess I'm just asking the committee to think about giving the students, letting them try it out, because in the end, I think the phone piece of it is going to really be less work for the principals and assistant principals than it is right now.
Well, I
because
hope
of-
I'm proven wrong. I don't, seriously. Mr. Hayes?
Three quick things. First of all, at the meeting that we discussed this, which unfortunately wasn't televised, but Assistant Principal Mahoney invited us all to lunch, and to go to the cafeteria at the high school and observe what's currently going on. And I plan on taking him up on that offer sometime next week. Number two, prior to the meeting that this was originally discussed at, I had emailed Principal Tracy, and I shared my results with everyone, his comments with everyone, and I asked him, could you give a few real-life examples of how a cell phone can be used as an educational tool in the classroom? Is there really any educational value in a cell phone? And his response, and he had a list: real-time research, teachers historically challenge a student to look it up, and now they're able to, submitting work, updating work, audience response system, which is what Superintendent Benton had referenced, signing up for global activities, flashcards, calculator, voice recorder for ideas, Google Docs, such as word processing, spreadsheets, presentations, etc. So there was more to the list. So,
But Robert, that's not, excuse me, I'm going to
Sure,
interrupt you there,
go ahead.
because this is where I'm getting back and forth on this.
yeah.
That has nothing to do with lunch.
That's
I
right.
agree, if we're going to do it in the classroom, I think that's terrific.
Right.
And I would support that.
Sure.
So I just want to make that clear.
Understood. Oh, that's a good clarification.
Thank you.
And the third thing I would say is I actually started this whole debate, I was sort of with Chairwoman Kane, but after hearing that, an overwhelming majority of the students approved of this similar proposal. We had over 80% of parents and community members who responded support the proposal. We've had the high school council support a similar proposal. We had 2/3 of teachers support a similar proposal. So I think, and then sort of independent research and Superintendent Benton sharing that link to the American Association of Secondary School Principals and sort of their support for mobile technology. My mind is pretty much made up on this one, I think, at this point. But I really enjoyed looking at the comments, particularly the negative comments, and I hope that we can address some of them, especially when we look at this in 3 months or 6 months, as you said. Some of the things I think, cyberbullying, what effect will this have on cyberbullying? What effect will this have on cheating? So I would certainly be interested in particular in those two things, but I guess that's all I have to say for now. So I'll leave it there for now.
That's good. Anybody else want to add? Mr. Vail?
The only thing I'll add, I mean, I know this is sort of a brave new world for us, but I think it's all about trying to minimize disruption and give some control to the teachers and the administration. And I think we're fighting sort of a pitched and almost losing battle, where these communication technologies are migrating into all sorts of devices, and it's not just a smartphone. So we're left on the one hand with trying to balance the interest in using iPads and laptops and other kinds of things in the classroom, when those things have communication features built into them. They have Wi-Fi, they send and receive texts, they can be used to make phone calls and all kinds of things, but they're not a cell phone. And we want to encourage that. So we want to we're trying to come up with a policy that gives teachers the right to authorize the use of these things in their classroom and figure out how to incorporate these technologies and these devices into their lesson plans, and to educate people on their appropriate use, and bring it in, and also give an outlet to the students who have come to us and said they want a lawful legal means that they can use to communicate with whomever they want to communicate at some point during the day, so they're not doing surreptitiously in the middle of a class or in the hallway or in a bathroom or somewhere else. So it's a balancing act, and we're trying to open it up to, we've got to teach some responsible and non-disruptive mechanisms to use these technologies, which I'll add, just to say, are migrating into everything. You can get a pen that looks just like a pen that, is connected to the internet. There are eyeglasses that have recording functions built into it for video and audio. We're totally losing control of this, and we need to come up with some kind of sensible policy that allows these systems to be used and gives control to the administration and the teachers to regulate it.
Mr. Vail, I agree with exactly what you said, and where is the paragraph in here that allows for that? That's my problem.
Well,
Where does it say that the teachers can use it in the classroom and they can use them for their work? It doesn't. That's what my problem is.
Yeah, it says the use of these devices during instructional time is prohibited unless the classroom teacher or other school officials provided authorization for their use.
So you
that's in the
feel
first-
that covers what?
I feel that basically says that you're not allowed to use them in the classroom unless the
Right.
teacher has said it's okay to use in the classroom.
Okay. Mrs. Carroll.
Well, I know two companies that got caught, their employees were using cell phones and they got fired. So for the students, it gives them the right to say, okay, you can use it whenever you want, school, work. No, you can get fired. Another thing is too, is what if that family can't afford a data package? A lot of families cannot afford $30, $40, $50 data package. They just don't have one kid, they have 4 kids. And that's a lot of money. And so that kid who's got a data package got the answer for the teacher. Well, the kid that can't afford the data package don't have the answer.
It can only be used if everyone has a device in the classroom.
Well, that should be,
Moving over.
that should be in the stipulation for the teachers. You cannot,
It'll be in the protocol.
you cannot let one kid use
No,
it
I agree
without
with
the
you.
other kid.
Thank you. Dr. Quinn.
You're right, absolutely.
To clarify on that also, I don't think it should be so much for example, if my kid has a cell phone with a data plan, I'll give a perfect example. I have a data plan, I limit myself to my minutes. So when the time comes for my children to be in school, with that type of thing, is it something, my thought process is if the teacher allows something like that, which I think is fine, I think that it's the parents that need to sign off on that, because now you're saying you're going to be using your minutes to do this type of work. And what if it goes over them? You got to think of these things. Let's say a child has 200 minutes, they've gone over 201, now they're paying $4 a minute extra. So, I'm just thinking these are might be minutia, but I'm just saying, like, when it comes to that kind of thing, it's something I think that needs to be, that's why I said it has to be specific as possible.
I'm probably going to, with all due respect, this is not an equity-based argument. We can't get into a situation where families with means are going to be limited in what they can provide their kids because other families don't have means. And there's always going to be disequities in terms of, some kids are going to have better sneakers or better clothes or, and certainly we're not going to say that a family can't have a computer at home, which will help their kids provide in school if other families don't have or can't afford a computer at home.
But then, Mr. Vail, isn't it up to us as a community to provide like they're being, what is
Equal
it they're getting
opportunity.
in Burlington?
Equal opportunity. Everyone
No,
has
but
the
if there's
opportunity.
certain things that we're going to ask for or expect from our teachers, then we have to provide those laptops, or we have to provide those iPads, like Burlington's doing, and giving them all the iPads. We can't just say, I don't feel, I'll never vote for this, that we would say, if you can get one, you have it and bring it in, and if you can't, you don't.
Well, I mean,
It's
some
not
kids are gonna have
right.
calculators and others don't.
No, we give them
Where do
calculators.
we
If they need
stop with this?
calculators, we give them calculators in school if they're going to be using calculators. They're given to them by the school.
Right.
Dr.
And I'm not, like I said, my point is not, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is a teacher cannot say, you need to go and do this if a child in a public school does not have those resources, is what I'm trying to say. If the resources aren't there, I don't think a teacher should say, everybody's got to do this, when, if you're going to do that, you have to provide those resources. That's all that I'm saying.
Mr. Marchese.
I think everybody in this committee pretty much knows where I stand on this issue, but I think we're kind of losing sight of what this policy is trying to state. In terms of the educational use of phones, I understand the list that Mr. Tracy gave, but what I think this committee needs to understand is that we're not trying to enforce curriculum based on cell phones. We're just saying that cell phones have the ability to provide information in a classroom. And also, this is about electronic devices. So if some child has the ability to bring a laptop or a tablet or something, or a Kindle, for instance. The reason why I bring up Kindles is that this summer my daughter had her summer reading, and I gave her the book, The Bystander, to read, the hardcover. She didn't want to do it. I got her a Kindle, we had it, put it on the Kindle, she read it in 2 days. 2 days she had her summer reading done, because she used the electronic device, and she liked it better. It was easier for her to use. So I think what we need to do is get off the focus of cell phones or inequities or whatever, is that we're just trying to move forward with the technology in the schools, giving the kids the opportunity to use that technology in the appropriate time and place. We've assigned that. We said the cafeteria, it's the kids' time, it's when they're eating, it's their time. It's out of the classroom. It's not a distraction in the classroom. So we're giving them a legal time to use that electronic device on their own time. In the classroom, though, the teachers are backing this, is that they said if we're going to make it part of the curriculum, the teachers are going to approve it. Then if we're going to make it part of the curriculum, then I agree, then if kids can't afford it or something, then we need to step up and provide the device. But if the child wants to use the phone, if they're in the cafeteria or in the library or something, and they have the authorization to use it, and they want to do some research on some project or something, they should have that ability. We should allow them to do that and not just completely restrict them. So, I mean, I'm totally in favor of this, and I think we should go forward.
Thank you. This is Carol.
Okay, so I agree with you, but they're just not going to use it to look up research. You know that, right? They're going to use it for other means. They're going to tell you they're going to look up research, but you know they're going to be on anything else. And another thing is, too, is how about the teachers who says, okay, children, give me your cell phone numbers and I'll text you alerts or homework. Oops, I forgot to tell you this homework. So she's texting the kids homework. Well, that's going to be on my texting bill. And I know it happened, because I know it happened freshmen, and I know a teacher that's asked the kids for their cell phones, and she's going to text them alerts. Well, really, what happened to my home phone so I can record it and the parent can know what the kid's supposed to have? It's all going to go to the kid. I mean, yeah, I look at my kids' cell phones. I look at everything. But this is, 9th, 10th, 11th. What if they erase it before the parent even sees it?
I think you're going a little bit too far when you think the teachers are going to be texting students. I mean, teachers have emails.
Mr. Marchese, it happened.
Teachers have their own websites.
It happened. It's either you can text it or they can email it. A lot of the kids said texting, so they all gave them the cell phones. A parent just told me it. I'm sorry, a parent just told me that at the field. And I said, we haven't even approved this.
I mean, that's the first time we've ever heard of teachers texting students, and I don't think that's appropriate.
That's what's going to happen.
But
That's what's going to
email, I mean,
happen. We're allowing it.
But Mrs. Carroll, teachers have websites, and kids don't have their homework. They're told to go to the class website and get the information.
You can argue with
Get it
me all you
online.
want.
Go
I
to
know.
the high school
I know what I
website.
heard, and I know what a parent told me.
If you could get me that information after the meeting, I'll be glad to look into it.
But you know, I'm not getting anybody in trouble, I'm not doing anything, but I'm just saying, this is what we're gonna have to deal with.
Mrs. Carroll, you brought
This
up
is-
something very important, and that's completely,
what we're
totally.
gonna have to deal with.
No, time out. Just me first, what I want to say is that type of behavior, I think, is inappropriate, that teachers texting students. That type of communication shouldn't happen. I totally agree with you on that regard. And that's total misappropriated use of a cell phone. And that's a different type of relationship between the child and the teacher. That's something totally outside of the school. That's something different that's happening, which is inappropriate, which I think needs to be followed up on. If you know of something, that I think Mrs. Benton now should know about this, that's been brought to your attention. But that's not what we're talking about right now. I think that's something different. That's an extreme case that's an unfortunate incident that happened that
She said
we
because
should take action on.
This policy's coming in place so that they can do that. That's what the parent told me. So I said, oh.
If
So,
I can
there's
get
a
the
lot of questions.
information,
It's
I
just
can
like
look into
everybody
it.
has to look at this, you
Right.
know, with an open eye, you know.
What happens over the next 6 months will be very interesting.
Very
I don't see much of a difference between using electronic communication devices to send an email versus a text. I mean, this is a great policy question.
It is.
And it's a
You're right.
really good debate. We need to, this is something we're going to have to struggle
Well, we need
with.
to educate the staff, and we need to educate ourselves. Me in particular. But I agree, see, I think we're not at that point, and I think that it's very dangerous at this point. I do
Except for the
too.
cell phone.
So, Mrs. Benton.
I just want to reiterate one thing. Remember, the students said it when they were sitting in that front row. Mr. Mahoney confirmed it. They're doing it illegally now, all during the day in the school. They are doing it all the time. What we're trying to do is make a place where they are safe, not in the hall, walking, to be able to use their phone on their free time in the lunchroom. That's what we're asking for. We're asking for permission, they're asking for permission to treat them like young adults. And I support that. I truly support that. And I want to encourage all the high school students to, if they have ideas on how to change this world by starting in Wilmington, I want them to come to us with these ideas. I don't want to shut them off. I want them to come to us if they have good ideas. And I believed every single one of them who told us that they were doing it all day long now, as is, under the desk. I don't know how to do it. I'm not agile enough to text without looking at but these kids are. So I just hope, I ask the committee as we move forward in this unknown world of technology to keep an open mind. Thank you.
Are we ready to move on? I think this was a wonderful discussion, and we will bring this to a vote at the next meeting. Okay, let me see. New business?
This evening, you have the first look at the professional development plan and professional development book. As you know, DESC requires the school committee to approve professional development, plan, so there won't be a vote this evening.
No.
Mrs. Burnham is here this evening if you have any questions, and I will help her out.
Oh, great. I know, we need to remember as a committee that this was probably mostly finished by the time, there hasn't been a meeting of the professional development group yet. So this is based on last year's work, not on, Mrs. Burnham really didn't have, I think she pulled it all together for us. Does anyone have any questions for her? Would you like to say anything to begin, Mrs. Burnham, about the overall program? Right.
No, I think the document speaks for itself. I know that there were some questions relative to content PD, which if you take a look at the district website, you can see through Wilmington University, teachers offer workshops, oftentimes related to content area PD. In addition, there's a tab on the site as well where there are links to institutions of higher learning, Salem State for one, MEC as a satellite for Fitchburg State, Endicott College, the catalogs for the fall semester course offerings, graduate course offerings are posted, and they're available to staff as well. So that's why they aren't specifically mentioned in here, because the website's updated each semester as the new catalogs are available.
To also
Yes.
just put this in context, that the teacher's contract has a section that says that requires, there's a professional development committee that's represented by members of the association as well as members of the administration. And that committee works throughout the year to plan and approve professional development. This past year, last year, if you recall, we had the full day of professional development training in which teachers took workshops connected to technology. This year, and after every full-day professional development, all staff is surveyed, and the professional development committee reviews the results. We ask them what they're looking for. So this year, if you noticed in the book, we're spending the day on differentiated instruction, bringing in speakers. So the committee really has a lot of input into the plan. The committee was co-chaired last year by Muriel Gravelisi, who's a reading specialist at the West, and Principal Frank Ferrio. And the Professional Development Committee also reviews our requests for professional development. They have to sign off on it, as well as Kate in the principal or CTL. So we're like a year ahead of schedule as far as the planning piece. So in a way, it's a good time for Kate to be coming on board, because she will be meeting with the Professional Development Committee next week as they fine-tune our November 1st Professional Development Day and move forward with plans for the future.
If anyone was available, I love that you're doing differentiated instruction. That's fantastic. Is it all right for us to attend that
Absolutely.
keynote speech? I think at 8:30, I think it was 8:30 to 10 or something.
The middle
If
school.
anyone's able to come to the middle school, that should be very interesting. And it sets a tone for the year. I think that's fantastic. Anyone have any other questions about this? So we will vote at the next meeting?
Yes.
To approve this. Thank you so much. And new business, the draft of the 2011-2012 superintendent's goals.
I've attached in your packet this evening draft goals for me for the school year. I got to cheat because I had the draft of the strategic plan that I built this on, the new draft. Although you haven't formalized your strategic plan, I wanted to put something out because I also feel that it's important for the principals and the teachers to work off of the superintendent goals. I think it keeps everything consistent and much easier to control. So this year, the areas that I'd like to be working on include student learning, adult learning, finance and budget, facilities and space utilization, climate and culture, and technology. And some of the things I'd like to be looking at is more emphasis on STEMs, education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, to continue the individual review of the new Common Core, making sure that our curriculum is aligned with it, to continue to provide optional professional development for the staff, and encourage our teachers to become teachers of others in Wilmington University. As always, we want to keep down the financial piece as best we can, and with the assistance of Mr. Ruggiero, present a budget to you that is mindful of limited resources. I do think one of the key focuses of my attention this year is going to be bringing forward to the community a proposal to build a new high school. As I said to the kindergarten parents this morning, this is my one opportunity, and I see it as an important job to try and convince the community that this is something that we need and will not have the support of the MSBA down the road, so that if it does not happen this year, then we lose the 52% reimbursement. So that will take up a lot of my work. Also, need to work with the town side on a continued sort of strategic plan for supporting the rest of the buildings, because we cannot build 4 elementary schools, and with the green repair opportunities, I think it's important to look at what we can do to upgrade the buildings. And I'd really like to have a 5-year plan where, next year we're replacing windows in 2 schools, the following year boilers, whatever it is we're going to be doing, because we need to be able to sustain the physical environment. And also, besides the big ticket items, just paint. I mean, that's the one thing you will notice it, Shasheen. I mean, once you do something like, put in new windows, then it's like,
I
geez,
heard it's green,
only, what?
green paint. I already heard comments on the green paint.
Green paint
Is it green
outside?
around the outside?
Oh,
Around the
you
windows?
mean-
It's turned to green?
No,
From blue?
You mean,
Such a little thing as paint, and people have comments on it.
oh, I'm sure they will. And I will take full responsibility, because I chose the colors. It's Sherwood green and barn red door.
Oh, I
And-
love that.
And
I haven't been
saddlewood
by.
trim, and it all has to do with fitting into the environment. If you look across the street at the complex next door, you
Yeah.
want the colors to blend in.
I
So
love
I take
that.
full responsibility.
I
Mr.
like
Marchese?
I like the exterior colors, but I think Mrs. Benton was referring to the interiors of the building.
Yes, I was.
Oh,
Greatly
okay,
updated.
sorry.
It really
Because
looks,
the
that's
brightness
exactly
now,
where I
the
was
windows,
going.
and you see the drab colors
Yeah,
inside.
the dirty walls,
Yes.
yes,
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
yes,
we
that's
didn't
where I was
see
going,
that.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As far as climate and control, we need to continue to implement our anti-bully initiative, and I will be asking Christine McMiniman to come to meetings shortly to report back to you on the survey we did as part of our first year with the policy on, and the committee should be proud, because the comments and support the good work that all the schools did last year. I also, after seeing Race to Nowhere last year and getting feedback from parents, we are putting together a committee to look at homework policy, relook at the homework policy, especially at the elementary grades. At the high school, look at the possibility of not, assigning homework over vacations or projects that, even though they're not assigned over vacations, to do them day after vacation, those kinds of things. And so that will be coming forward, and ask Mr. Tracy to share a policy on stress. So that's also come up. So we'll be doing a lot of work around climate and culture. And lastly, technology, continuing to ensure that our classrooms are equipped with the tools teachers need in order to develop a 21st century education. So
I'm going to ask if we could put together, I'm sorry, Mrs. Benjamin, I didn't get a chance to speak to about this before I say it. But I'm feeling that, the new superintendent evaluation that we have to do, and we do it in public, and it's just unwieldy at this point to me. But what I'd like to do is have a subcommittee of the school committee, if you think about it for next time, this is what should be the basis of the superintendent's evaluation. And the way we have it set up with what we've had in the past, I would like to see if a subcommittee of maybe 2 or 3 members could work with Mrs. Benton on something that's truly fair and kind of based on what it is that she does for the year. And what she does is right here in these goals. And so then when we bring in those other 6 items that we're trying to meld them together, I don't know about the rest of you, but I found that very difficult last year, trying to put together the different things we had about personnel and all that. So if you think about it, if anyone wants to work on that, if that's acceptable to Mrs. Benton, I think that we could make something that's much more to the point, and not like making us think about things all over the place that we don't know about and don't really affect us. What do you mean by that? Specific? Yes. Yes. Subparagraph? Rather than specific to the other, like look at the other thing that we've always used as our evaluation form. And so that comes from the Mass Association of School Committees, but it's old because it's not the kind of thing that people are being asked to be evaluated on to use as a basis. And so I think that if we could just
talk about it a little bit. It would make it easier to do the evaluation in March. We'll do that. Okay, so we'll think about that. So if you'll think about for the next meeting, if anyone wants to work on that, that would be great. Okay.
So I think you spoke that.
Good, thank you. Our next item is public comments. Any public comments? Hartley, it's nice to see you back.
Very well put. An active fundraiser.
Happy you want to talk to the microphone? We can't hear you. It's great.
Martha O'Brien from the Special Ed Parent Advisory Council. And just to let you know, we're hosting our first fundraiser, and it's going to be September 9th. And we're having it at the Knights of Columbus, right over here, from 5:30 to 8 o'clock. It's a Pizza Mania, and we're having several pizza places in town and in the surrounding communities. They're donating pizza, and everyone is welcome, and I think it's $8 for adults and $5 for children. And please feel free to stop by. Thank you.
Thank you. Other reports? Correspondence? Mr. Secretary?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. You'll notice here under future meeting dates and agenda items, we have September 12th, 2011. Would you mind explaining that, Mrs. Benton?
The high school building committee wanted to come back and meet with the selectmen and school committee to give you an update on what was going on. And instead of doing 2 meetings, we thought we'd just combine with the selectmen, so it will be on the 12th.
Okay.
I just have a question on that meeting. So it's basically a high school building committee meeting that we're attending, or is it an official school committee meeting? I'm just asking what the official meeting is. It's our meeting.
Selectmen's meeting that you're invited to hear presentations from the high school building.
Okay, so it's not our official, so we're being invited to the selectmen. Okay. I just want the public to get confused that we're having another meeting in September. It's not our meeting, it's selectmen meeting that we're being invited.
Right, and then the 14th we'll have our regular meeting. Yeah. And could you please let the Roman House know that by that day, if you're going to be able to attend, so they'll know to get started if people aren't going to be able to make it. 7 o'clock.
I'll have a time certain pretty close to it, so we can
Anybody else want to? Hey, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Looking at Daisy. Second? Mr. Hayes. All those in favor? Unanimous.